Hello, students, and welcome. Today, we're going to understand a very important topic in civics, party systems. This is really the key to figuring out how politics works, not just here in India, but all over the world.
So let's start with a question to get us thinking. Have you ever wondered why a country like the USA seems to have just two main political parties, but when you look at India, we have hundreds of them? Well, the answer lies in understanding something called the party system.
So, to answer that question about the USA and India, we first need to be very clear on our basics. What exactly is a party system? Let's find out.
In simple terms, a party system is basically the collection of all the political parties that are competing for power in a country. But it's not just about counting the number of parties. It's really about how many parties have a serious chance of winning elections and actually forming the government.
Now, this is a very, very important point, and I want you to remember this for your exams. A country doesn't just wake up one day and decide, okay, we'll have a two-party system. No, it doesn't work like that. A party system develops and evolves over many, many years, and it depends on the country's society, its history, and even the kind of election system it has. So if these systems evolve, what do they typically look like? Well, we can broadly classify them into three main types that we see around the world. Let's take a look at each one.
First up, we have the one-party system, and really, the name gives it away. In this kind of system, only one single party is allowed by law to control and run the government.
A classic example here is China, which is run by the Communist Party. Now, in a one-party system, people, the voters, they don't really have a choice, do they? They can't choose between different parties. And that brings us to the most important point. Since democracy is all about choice, a one-party system is not considered a democratic option at all.
Next, let's move on to the two-party system. This is a model you might be familiar with, maybe from watching the news or movies about politics in some Western countries.
In this system, power usually shifts back and forth between two major dominant parties. Think of the USA with its Democrats and Republicans. Now, the big advantage of this system is that it often leads to a very stable government because one party usually wins a clear majority. But what's the downside? Well, for voters like us, the choice is very limited. You might have to pick between just two options, and maybe neither one perfectly represents what you believe in.
And that brings us to our third type, the multi-party system. Now, this one should feel very familiar to all of us because this is the system we have right here in India. In a multi-party system, several parties compete for power, and more than just two of them have a realistic chance of winning. The greatest strength here is representation. It allows so many different interests, cultures, and opinions to have a voice in politics. But there's a flip side, right? It can sometimes seem a little messy, and it can sometimes lead to what we call political instability. Okay, so this table is a fantastic way to revise everything we've just discussed. Just look at the first row. Democratic choice. See how it goes from none in a one-party system to limited in a two-party and then to wide in a multi-party system. Now look at the next row, government stability. The two-party system is generally stable, but the multi-party system can be unstable. This really shows us the main trade-off. It's often a choice between more representation and more stability.
So that brings us back to India. And it leads us to a very important question. Why exactly has India evolved a multi-party system? Why not a two-party system like the US or the UK?
Just take a moment to think about this. Our country is huge, and it's incredibly diverse. We have so many different languages, so many different cultures, religions, and regions. With all of this variety, do you really think just two parties could represent the hopes and needs of every single person in India?
The answer, of course, is probably not. India's immense diversity is the main reason we have a multi-party system. It's just not possible for only two or even three parties to represent all these different voices. That's why we have so many regional parties that represent the unique identities and interests of different states.
So, what happens when you have so many parties? Well, very often, no single party wins enough seats to form the government all by itself. When that happens, several parties have to join hands. They have to form a team to run the government together. And this team, this alliance, is what we call a coalition government. Let me give you a very simple analogy. Think of an election like it's your final exam. To pass and form the government, a party needs a majority. Let's say that's the passing marks. Now, if no single party gets enough marks on its own, what can they do? Well, two or more parties can decide to form a team. They join hands, combine their marks, or in this case, their seats, and together they reach the majority. This team then gets to form the government. That's exactly how a coalition works.
All right, before we finish, let's talk about something very practical, your board exams.
When you get a question asking you to compare the different party systems, how do you write a perfect, high-scoring answer? Let's look at a simple structure.
If you just remember these 4 simple steps, you will write an excellent answer. First, define each system clearly. Second, compare them on key points, like voter choice and stability. Third, list the pros and cons, at least one for each. And finally, number 4, always give correct examples, like China, the USA, and India. This structure will make your answer clear, well-organized, and will definitely get you good marks. So, I'll leave you with a final question to think about. Which of these systems do you think is the best for a democracy? Which one finds the right balance between representing everyone and having a stable government? There's no easy answer, but it's a very important question to consider. Keep thinking, and I'll see you in the next class.